Good evening. I would like to welcome everyone to the February 13th council meeting of the City of Mayfield Heights. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Balestrea.
Present.
Mr. DeJohn.
Here.
Mr. Mano.
Here.
Mr. Monaco.
Here.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Here.
Mrs. Snyder.
Here.
Mrs. Teresi.
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next is the approval of the minutes from our council meeting of the Committee of the Whole on January 23rd, 2023. I hope everyone's had time to read these minutes over. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Moved by Mrs. Teresi, second by Mrs. Sabetta. Are there any suggested changes, amendments, or deletions to those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? These minutes have been approved. Next, we will move to the approval of the minutes of the council meeting on January 23rd. I hope everyone has had time to read these minutes over. May I have a motion to approve the minutes? Move, Mr. DeJohn.
I have a change.
I'm sorry.
I have a change in the minutes.
Okay.
So, when Mrs. Kramer spoke, you placed her letter in the minutes, but you didn't include my comments. Mrs. Kramer stated that I said, "What is the purpose of solar panel?" And I told her that minutes were misleading, and I know what the purpose of, I didn't say this, but I know what the purpose of solar panels was, and none of that, those comments made it into the minutes, so I was wanting to add those to the minutes.
Mrs. Lloyd, can you make the changes for us?
Sure, not a problem.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So these minutes will be amended with Mr. DeJohn's comments in there. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And these minutes have now been approved as written, as amended as written. Does any member of council have any correspondence or announcements this evening? Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. The Chagrin River Watershed will meet on February 21st in person at the Mayfield Village Civic Center at 4 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sabetta. We'll move to reports of officers, starting with the mayor.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Last Wednesday, members of council, the administration, and I were given a tour of the Aquatic and Community Center by A.M. Higley, Level Heads, and the GPD group. It was a pretty amazing walkthrough. The building is much larger than I thought. It's going to be a very special complex, I believe, after walking through it and really being able to wrap your head around what's going to be there. So it was a very nice tour, and it was very surprising to see the amount of space over there and how much room we're going to have. So it's going to be a real special place for the city. The corporate park continues to grow. Walter Haverfield has a new home at 6110 Parkland, so we want to welcome them to the city. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the mayor? Mrs. Tressi.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mayor, are we planning on having security systems in the aquatic center and cameras that can be monitored from, like, the Park and Rec office or someplace?
Yes. We're going over the IT, and that's all part of it right now, so we're doing
So
Yep. That's
it'll all
gonna
be included, I mean, it'll all be installed prior to walls going up so that we're not,
Anything that we've discussed what we wanted there, and any conduit or anything that needs to be in place before should be there.
So we don't have to,
We're not going to retrofit, no. Unless something comes along we didn't think of before, maybe that gets retrofitted. But we have discussed security, cameras, IT, all that.
in the gymnasium, in the meeting rooms, so that it's such a huge complex. You want to make sure that you kind of have an eyeball into that facility.
Keep an eye on the place.
Yeah. Yeah, vandalism. I mean, vandalism happens inside as well as outside
Right.
when you can't see what's going on, so. And will all of that camera system and monitoring is it included in the $35 million price? Mrs.
Yes,
Fagan said-
it should
Mrs.
be.
Fagan is
Yeah.
nodding her
It
head.
is, yeah. I had to,
I hope it
didn't,
was,
I didn't hear her nodding behind me.
You could hear her.
Yeah, it's definitely included because we discussed all of it, IT costs and security and everything, yeah.
Thank you.
When we were over there, they showed us the area that the security system is
Yeah, I
going to be
didn't get to
in.
go because it was in the
Yeah.
middle of the day. I sent my surrogate. My assistant came.
Aw, that's awesome. Thank you. Okay, Law Director, Mr. Murphy. Oh, sorry, not that. Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. Mayor, I have a resident that sent me an email, and they want to know if the city has any control over lighting in parking lots, increasing the lighting, and I didn't have an answer for her. So I don't know if you do or if Mr. Thomas does. There's this resident saying that Giant Eagle is very, very dark in the parking lot, and they'd like to see more lighting. And I don't know, as a city, if we can require that or not.
We could take a look at it, definitely.
I don't know if any of you have seen that on Facebook. I've seen it on Facebook, but she actually sent me an email, so
It's
thanks.
dark.
Mr. Mano.
I'd like to add to that. What's up with the post office? Aren't they paying their electric bill? That place at night is pitch dark. None of the entrance lights are on. None of the parking lot lights are on. And you have to go into the building now to mail something. They took
Right.
away the box.
Right.
That's dangerous. I mean, there should be no excuse for not having lights in the walkway going in. They've got them in the ceiling, but they're not on, and the parking lot. There should be no excuse for that. This post office over here is the worst post office in the county. I know Pepper Pike's complained about it before. Beechwood's complained about it before. I don't know who's in charge over there, but they sure as hell don't do what they're supposed to do with that place. The parking lot's a mess. There's chuck holes everywhere. And I don't know who we talked to about that, but somebody's got to do something over there. Thank you.
I'll look into it, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for the mayor? Okay, now, Director of Law, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have a report, but I would request that there be an executive session after the regular business to discuss pending and imminent litigation.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Murphy? Director of Finance, Mrs. Fagan.
Thank you. I have no formal report this evening.
Thank you. We will now remove to reports of committees, commissions, and boards. If your committee or commission is met, this is your time to give the report. We'll begin with the Building Committee. Mr. Monaco.
Thank you, Madam President. We had no meetings, so therefore I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Finance and Audit, Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. We do have one ordinance, 2023-06, on the agenda tonight, an ordinance amending the original appropriations. So that'll be coming up, and we can ask Mrs. Fagan questions when that comes up. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Legislative Committee, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. No report.
Thank you. Public Works and Service, Mr. Balistreo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a report this evening. Council was copied on the minutes from the meeting we held on January the 26th. As a result of that meeting, you have before you tonight Resolution 2023-15 for the resurfacing part of the road program, and Resolution 2023-19 for the reconstruction aspect of the road program. These are to allow GPD to begin the engineering of those roads put forth to you by the Public Works and Services Committee for the road program, and I urge council to pass them. The final proposals from the committee that will be coming up to council that GPD will be engineering are as follows. We have agreed to, via committee, resurface and repair Monterey, Indiana, Queens Park, Valley Vista, Cordova, Summit, and Mayfield Ridge. Additionally, total reconstruction will be done on Westerham, Sunningdale, and Crestwood. And of course, those will include sidewalks, aprons, and all curb repairs that are necessary. And also, the final costs from the 22 road program were given to me from Mr. Chuney. I don't know if council was copied on those, but I put them on your desk this evening just to show you that Program A was Agresta, that was resurfacing of the programs for last year. We came under budget by $100,000. Program B was the Vandra brothers that did the Long Ridge and Marshfield area. That came under budget, according to bid, by $20,000. And Agresta also did Woodhawk, the concrete repair and asphalt overlay. The budgeted amount was $914,744, and the total bill was $832,508. So we were under budget with that project as well by about $80,000. Program D was AJ Cement, which was to do the spot repairs on Ridgeberry and Mayfield. If you remember, we had agreed to postpone doing that work until '23. The contractor agreed to hold the '22 contract prices, so that project will still be done in '23 this year. So if you have any questions, that's my report.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Balistreda. Any questions at this time? Thank you for preparing this, too. This helps.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. We'll move to Recreation and Parks. Mr. Mano.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have no formal report tonight.
Thank you. Safety and Transportation, Mrs. Tracy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have no formal report this evening.
Thank you. We'll move to Board of Zoning, Mrs. Sabato.
Thank you, Madam President. The Board of Zoning will meet here in council chambers at 7 p.m. tomorrow. We have one item on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Planning Commission, Mr. Balistreo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Planning Commission did not have an agenda, therefore I have no report.
Thank you. So we will move to the comments from the public. Pursuant to City Code, each person will be allotted 5 minutes to speak, with a maximum of 30 minutes allotted for the entire public portion. If you are here in connection this evening with an agenda item, this is your opportunity to address council. If you'd like to be heard this evening, please fill out a form located on the table at the public entrance of the council chambers. And during the public portion, I will call each person wishing to speak to the podium. Please state your name and address for the record. Speak clearly into the microphone. It is now 7:16. And I will open up the public portion. We'll call Mr. Chad Lichten.
Can I have like more than 5 minutes, maybe 7 or 8 or something, so I don't feel rushed?
So what we'll do is at 5 minutes, I'll go ahead and ask for council to approve that, and then
Okay.
we'll request it.
Okay,
Okay?
thanks.
Thank you.
because I personally won't sustain any more vision damage because of the bully that lives across the street. Should I state my name? You already did. Chad Lichten on Fairhaven. Anyway, before this meeting, I spoke with Officer Mele.
Officer Officer Mealy.
Mealy.
Chief Mealy.
Chief Mealy. And he said that he actually spoke with the neighbor and he's going to turn it down, which sounds nice. I'd rather have it turned down, sure. But I still believe there's got to be an ordinance written because, it took years. It took at least 4 years for anything real to happen. And that's preposterous. But it's also that no one, it shouldn't be like, oh, I turned it down, it's better. I'm not trying to be rude to you. I'm just thinking there should be penalty for visible bulbs. There should be a very strict code of lighting because we all should be able to have the security more than just people who want to post light, people who actually are up at night looking out their window. You should be able to look out of your window comfortably all night. All night, you should be able to stare without having to block a certain angle, without having to cover your window. Restricted views out of your front window are dangerous. I feel claustrophobic having it all shut off from reality. I want to see what's out there. That's it. Okay, so beyond that, this is what I wanted to do today. I wanted to read this article in Science Magazine. I appreciate what you did, though. I do. I want more. I want more. Anyway, this article says light pollution is skyrocketing. It's not exactly about, well, they do talk about, light pollution, but anyway, I want to just read what I can. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to read fast, so I hope you can follow me. Artificial lighting at night is contributing to a rapid increase in light pollution as reported by whoever on this issue. By analyzing tens of thousands of observations made by citizen scientists around the world over the past 12 years, the authors found that the dimmest stars in the night sky are being hidden by a 10% yearly increase in the sky background as a result of artificial light. This growth is difficult to discern with satellites now in operation because their detectors blind to the blue light emitted by light-emitting diodes, LEDs, which are progressively replacing older lamps, such as high-intensity discharge. The results of this study point to the need for satellites that can detect the visible light in different color bands and make a strong case for reversing light pollution and its wide-ranging negative effects from ecological to cultural to health-related. I'm going to skip way ahead. Perhaps the most important message for this that the scientific community should glean from the study is that light pollution is increasing, notwithstanding the countermeasures purportedly put in operation to limit it. Looking at the International Space Station's images and videos of Earth's night hemisphere, people generally are only struck by the beauty of the city lights, as if they were lights on a Christmas tree. They do not perceive that these images of are images of pollution. It is like admiring the beauty of rainbow colors that gasoline produces in water and not recognizing that it is a chemical pollution. Awareness must greatly increase for artificial light at night to be perceived not as an always positive thing, but as the pollutant it really is. Most people associate artificial light with road safety and personal security, connections that are not well supported by evidence. Thus, year after year, more lights are installed to brighten at night. However, there are noticeable negative consequences that are on the rise. Astronomers were quick to realize that night lights affected their research, and hence they moved observatories further from cities. Unfortunately, as the use of outdoor lights spread, this strategy has become less effective. In addition, as the efficiency of light technology improves, more lighting is possible for the same amount of money. This is translating into a flourishing of new lights to illuminate roads, buildings, and natural landscapes for digital billboards and for garden beautification, among other applications. To make things worse, thousands of satellites are being launched by a few corporations into low Earth orbit.
Mr. Lichten, let me just get an approval. Can I make a motion to give, moved by Mr. Belstria, second by Mr. DeJohn. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. And I want to say about this low Earth orbit stuff, Elon Musk satellite. Did you guys see it last night at about 9 p.m.? It was a strip of satellites. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was meteors. It was filling like a big portion of the sky, a strip of light. And it's not to say that's exactly hurting one's eye, but they're talking about how that destroys the natural land, nightscape we've had for billions of years. And it is sad. It is sad, and it's becoming like garbage light everywhere. Anyway, let me keep going. This will prevent all humankind from to make things worse, thousands of satellites are being launched by a few corporations into low Earth orbit. This will prevent all humankind from admiring a pristine sky anywhere on the planet. The wilderness experience one can have in a national park at night, for example, may increasingly affected by the glows of cities and satellite mega constellations. The loss of a starry night is an unprecedented loss for all cultures. Light pollution is also, and mainly, an environmental problem. Life on Earth evolved with sunlight during the day and starlight and the light from the moon during the night. It is expected that introduction of artificial light into ecosystems at levels that surpass the amount of natural light experienced in natural conditions will trigger changes in animal behavior. Some species, including predators, may take advantage of more light. Other species will be in danger of local or global extinction, which will reduce biodiversity. Moreover, animals, including humans, will diminish their production of melatonin in response to artificial light at night. Melatonin is a fundamental hormone that controls the internal circadian clock of animals, and thus animal physiology. A lack of this hormone could have numerous negative consequences on health. It is also expected that processes needed to produce, install, and operate outdoor artificial lights will release greenhouse gases into the atmosphere and contribute to global warming. I don't even worry about that. I just don't want my eyes burning all night. An estimated 200 billion kilograms of carbon dioxide is generated to produce the 400 terawatt hours of electricity needed for outdoor lights. Attempts to control light pollution have been carried out in the past decades, including aiming light below the horizon plane. This approach is not sufficient because new light, even if shielded, will add pollution to the night environment after being reflected off surfaces being lit. New approaches that treat light as a true pollutant could include introducing total caps and red lines on its production that are based on the control of light pollution indicators such as the night sky zenith luminous, the illumination of the ground coming from the entire sky. This would be analogous to the reduction of most air contaminants that was achieved through legislation initiatives such as the Clean Air Act in the U.S. Light pollution is an environmental problem and as such should be confronted and solved. This may restore the need for an uncontaminated night environment by animals and humankind. I'm just going to end by saying, I know this seems like big worldly stuff and like in the future, but if you and us and we do the right thing as a community, maybe we'll be an example and people will just have their peace at night and maybe other communities will follow suit. But I do believe as this problem has gotten so bad, it will have to be enforced sometime sooner rather than later. So you may as well do the right thing now and just set the example now and let us all live peacefully at night. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lichten.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have Mrs. Deborah Kramer.
Hi, my name is Deborah Kramer. I live at 1110 Belrose Road. I'll be very brief tonight. I just have two thoughts to share. One of them is a follow-up of Mr. DeJohn's earlier comment. I think he and I talked after the meeting last time. We talked about the fact that one of the things he wanted clarification on, and I'd like to clarify for everyone, is in terms of the purpose of solar panels that I'm requesting, is the purpose is not to generate electricity to sell back to the grid and to make a profit. The primary purpose of the solar panels is to use in the residence where the solar panels are located. So I did want to clarify that. Sometimes there will be excess generation. You generate more than you're using, and then it does go back to the grid. But most of the time, especially in Northeast Ohio, you're going to be probably drawing some from the grid. I can say I just got my electric bill, and I was still up close to $100. So it's by no means a profit-making thing. The other comment that I just wanted to make is I had a nice conversation with Mr. Thomas, and he is in dialogue with people to attempt to find some reasonable way of resolving this issue, and so I hope to hear further about that. So that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Good, thank you. I hope you feel better.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else here this evening that would like to be heard? Okay. It is 7:30, and I will close the public portion. We will move to resolution number 2023-14. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, excuse me. Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2023-14, a resolution authorizing all actions necessary to accept Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council, NOPEC, energized community grants and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Balestrea, second by Mr. DeJohn. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano. Mr. Mano.
I can't hear.
Mr. Mano. Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn. Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, second by Mr. Balestrea. This is the NEC grant program that NOPEC has. It is part of their Energize 2023 Community Grant Offer. In order to receive this grant, we have to be in good standing as a member of NOPEC. We have to use the grant primarily for energy efficiency or use it for energy infrastructure. You should have all received a copy of the grant agreement in your packet. I'll open up for questions. Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. So, NOPEC is pulled out with gas and electricity, so why do we need to do this?
I agree.
So, I understand if there's money from last year.
They're giving us money.
From last year, but this says 2023, so there probably won't be any money this year, I'm assuming, right?
And maybe there won't be a grant next year. There's like a year lag on it.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay, okay. I'm all for the money, I just was wondering. They're having so many problems, and the state of Ohio has delayed their application to conduct business in the state, so I don't know what their problem is, but it's doesn't seem good to me.
Mrs. Fagan, what did we get last year from them?
Yeah, just over 45,000.
Okay. Mr. Mano, did you have a question?
They kicked us in the butt once. Now we're going to give them a chance to do it again. They're out. They should stay out.
I think, I understand where Mr. Mano's coming from. NOPEC kind of left a lot of people high and dry, but this is not a commitment other than we are accepting this grant money. So I understand, definitely, some people are very disappointed with NOPEC, but I think this is money that we should accept and we could use for maybe the generator we've been talking about, maybe some lighting issues, so I think it would kind of be foolish to turn it down.
Mr. DeJohn.
Just one more question. So is this a guarantee that we will get some money, or do we have to apply for this money and then it's distributed among all the communities that are part of NOPEC?
Mrs. Fagan.
My understanding is that they go through the applications that they receive and divvy up the funds they have at that point. So it depends on how many people are applying and everything, and other criteria along the way. Our amount every year has varied from year to year, so we're not sure what we'll be getting yet in 2023.
But we will get something, right? Or is it their choice? That's what I'm asking.
I am not certain of the criteria they use to determine their grading criteria or whatever, but we have gotten something every single year.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Madam Chair? I could-
Mayor.
I mean, yeah, there's no guarantee. But why wouldn't we apply for it and take the money if it's available? Yeah, there's no guarantee. There's never been a guarantee, as a matter of fact. They state that in their application.
Any questions from council over here? Mr. Monaco?
That's okay, go ahead. Mayor, I just have a question. Is there any possibility that we can invite some representative from this DOPEC to come here and talk to us, and so that the residents can know exactly what's going on with the company? Because there seems to be a mass confusion out there. Some people opt out, some were kind of forced. The prices went way up. I think it would be great if somebody from the company could join us in one of these meetings and just see what the status of the company is and what's going on moving forward.
I actually got an email from a representative. I could reach out to him, and I'll also I can forward to all members of council a very lengthy email about this whole NOPEC and where their stand is on everything. I can send it to you, and we can see if he can come.
That'll be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
No, this guy reached out to me.
If I could, Madam Chair.
Mayor, go ahead.
Yeah, you know what? I had Mary Beth look into it, and she got a pretty lengthy explanation. I thought she's forwarded to council. I guess not.
It just came from him, like
Okay.
it wasn't from.
Well, I'll make sure all the information I have, I'll get to you.
Okay, any further questions? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJohn,
Yes.
Mr. Monaco,
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi,
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea,
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, this motion has been approved. Moving to resolution number 2023-15, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2023-15, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an amendment to the agreement with Glass, Pyle, Schomer, Burns, and DeHaven, Inc., DBA GPD Group, to provide professional consulting engineering services in connection with the city's 2023 roadway resurfacing program and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Move.
Moved by Mr. DeJohn, second by Mrs. Tressi. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestrea, second by Mrs. Tressi. We have heard from Mr. Balestrea this evening, giving his road program report. This resolution will authorize GPD to oversee this year's 2023 resurfacing program. The cost of the professional consulting for these services will not exceed $142,150. GPD sent a letter dated February 2nd explaining the fee proposal, the streets and the engineering, and the design of this project. Does any member of council have any questions, further questions? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, resolution number 2023-15 has been approved. Moving to the next resolution, 2023-16, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution number 2023-16, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with RKS RJ Consulting, LLC, to provide for consulting services regarding the naming rights procedure for the Aquatic Center and Community Center in the city of Mayfield Heights and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Madam
there-
Chairman, I'd like to call this to be tabled as we have a
Meeting
committee
Wednesday.
meeting coming up, and this is part of the discussion on that.
Okay.
I
Thank you.
move to table.
Move the table. I need a second.
I'll second.
Mr. DeJohn, okay. Thank you.
Roll
This
call, roll
resolution.
call.
Oh, roll call on the motion to table resolution number 23-16.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. So this will be tabled. Moving to resolution number 2023-17, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution number 2023-17, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Southeastern Equipment Company, Inc. for the purchase of a front-end loader for use by the Mayfield Heights Service Department and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mrs. Tressi, second by Mr. Bellistrea. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Mano, second by Mr. DeJohn. All members of council should have received the equipment quotes in an email from Mr. Brunello explaining the purchase of a front-end loader from Southeastern Equipment Company. The cost of this front loader is not to exceed $215,000. We'll be trading in equipment, which I believe is a 2008 front loader, that was valued at $37,000. So that would put the total cost to $178,899.32. And Mr. Brunello is here this evening if you would like to answer any questions from council. Mr. DeJohn.
I did talk with Mr. Brunello today, but I had one question I forgot to ask you. Does it make more sense to put out our trade out for bid? Wouldn't we technically get more money for it, the front-end loader you're retiring?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know if we'd get more money for it.
Have you ever tried that, or?
The only way to really do that is to put it on gov deals. And typically gov deals is not, you don't get a whole lot of value for what you're getting rid of. You get more value out of trading the machine in towards the other piece of equipment. Is what I found to be successful in the past when we're trading, other things in. And actually, I think that, Diane, I think that amount was wrong. I think the amount was $184,000.
Hold on one second, I have it right here.
No.
2,000.
It says,
Either way, you guys have the right number, but that's,
in-
in my mind,
Okay.
that's something different.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Balestrea.
This was, Ms. Fagan, this was a capital approval? Correct. Okay.
Mrs. Tressi, do you have any questions?
I have
Okay.
nothing.
Roll call on the motion
I'm
to
sorry,
approve.
I have a question.
All right,
I'm a little confused because on the first page of the resolution, it says the cost not to exceed 215,000 or whatever. Then at the last page, in small print, it says that the seller will pass along any manufacturer price increase and/or surcharges to the purchaser.
Highlighted in yellow. It's the part highlighted in yellow.
oh, the little,
Oh, that was in the memo.
Mr. Brunello, all the numbers that I read out are exactly what's on the quote, the agreement. You had said it was wrong, but I have 184, yeah, right here. Oh, the estimated balance due would be 178.
178,889.
Go ahead. Mr. Murphy.
184,1670.
Oh, that's a highlighted one. That's what you were talking,
After the trade.
That's all in, correct.
right.
It's, the price that's being paid is $215, but then there is a trade-in of approximately $37,000. So the net would be, but the not to exceed is $215, which hopefully, if there is any increase in the price, that'll cover it.
Or decrease in value of our current machine.
Either or, yeah. So Mrs. Fagan has $215,000 to work with.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Mr.
thank you.
Monaco? Okay. All right, are there any other further questions? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes,
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, this resolution has been adopted. Moving to resolution number 2023-18. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution number 2023-18, a resolution ratifying and approving construction contract modifications to the agreement with the Albert M. Higley Company for the construction of the Mayfield Heights Aquatic Center and the Community Center and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Mano, second by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
yes,
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Belstraya
second,
and second by Mrs. Sabetta. There have been 8 modifications to the construction contract, which has a net increase of $80,278.60. This additional work has been outlined for you in your packets. Most of these changes are for sanitary storm piping, maintenance, a change to the city pool toy feature, adjusting some of the main circuit breakers, concrete and bollards that are needed to protect our public utilities. And did I cover everything, Sean? I just was pretty much, if you can think of anything else. I went through all the modifications. So, does any member of council have questions? Mrs. Tracy?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mrs. Fagan, on section 13, it still has that 30,464 number. You and I spoke at the last council meeting because the resolutions, you said you had not been updating those numbers. And there were 2, I believe, resolutions at the last meeting, and then this one says 30,000. Is that the correct number?
That is the correct number for the Higley contract, yes.
Did you go back and look at the last Higley
I did
contract?
not look at that one, but I know that we went back and verified numbers on this one. And I verified, Jason's not here tonight, but when Jason gave us everything, he and I sat down and went back and forth, made sure we were both coming up with the exact same number for the Higley contract.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions from council? Okay, roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Teresi.
No.
Mrs. Sabetta.
yes,
Mr. Monaco.
No.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
No.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, this motion has been approved. Moving to Resolution 2023-19, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2023-19, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an amendment to the agreement with Gloss, Pyle, Schomer, Burns, and DeHaven, Inc., DBA GPD Group, to provide professional consulting engineering services in connection with the city's 2023 roadway reconstruction program and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
move,
Moved by Mrs. Tressi, second by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes?
Mrs. Sabetta.
yes,
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Tressi, second by Mr. Belstraya. This resolution will authorize the GPD Group to oversee this year's 2023 reconstruction program. The cost of the professional consulting for these services will not exceed $264,900. GPD sent a letter dated February 7th explaining this fee proposal and the streets and the engineering design for this project. The following streets for this proposal would include Crestwood, Sunningdale, and Westerham. Mrs. Tressi.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just have a question to Mr. Chuney. If this is approved, how fast will the core tests be done? I mean, we're already, behind. Most companies have already been approved, probably have their engineering done. So how fast will you be doing core testing and getting this into motion?
We ready to begin work immediately, and we'll do the best we can to get it out by late spring, I would hope, yeah. We do have to do all the surveying, we have to do the pavement cores and prepare the plans, so.
So you'll get the bids out by
I mean, the
late
resurfacing
spring?
one I can get out in a month. You know, the one you approved earlier, we'll have it out for bids hopefully late March, and we'll be here in April for award. But as far as reconstruction goes, it's gonna take us a couple months, yeah, at least, so.
I have a question.
And it is weather dependent, you know, this weather's great. You know, my survey crew can get out there and do what they need to do.
Right.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
So the aquatic center and that project will be going on. When was this, when would this be scheduled? Because I know that those roads are near this area, and it would be, like, I would be concerned that there'd be a lot going
Well,
on.
this will be scheduled in the summertime, yeah. So by the time we get it out for bids and come back here for an award, it'll be June. And it'll be going this summer, correct? And it will be the same time, right?
Okay.
We're not closing any of the roads. I mean, it will be open to traffic, but it will be under construction. So,
And it's all predicated on having a contractor,
Well, a favorable bid, yes, yeah. That we would recommend to the city, correct, yeah.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yeah, thank you. We talked about that at committee. Actually, Marsal was discussed as a total reconstruct, and obviously we had to put that off because of the opening. But Bellingham and Sundale were definitely two streets that needed to be done, and it's either now or later, no matter which way you look at it. Traffic, you know, going into the new aquatic center is going to be rerouted. We're going to have to bring them around Chelmsford or something like that, and but keep Marsal open. So it's got to happen.
Okay. Mr. Monaco.
Mr. Chuney, what is the purpose of coring and boring of the pavement? I mean, we have an existing road there. We know that it probably was cored and bored years ago, so the bearing of the soil should be okay. Why do it again?
We're going to take pavement cores to verify what's out there, so we can tell the contractor what he has to remove, how thick, you know, and what it's made of. And as long as we're there, you know, to take additional soil samples. When was the road built? I mean, how many years ago? I would like to know a little bit about the base underneath that pavement, so we can give you a proper design. It's not a big expense. I think it was in there, what it was. And it's a lot of information for a little bit of money.
thank
I
you.
think I always recommend it.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Mr. Balestrea.
Just one more comment. On the minutes, I didn't catch it, but Crestwood was omitted as a reconstruct in the minutes, so you might want to just add that to the Public Works and Services minutes. That Crestwood is also going to be done during 2023, as I stated. It's just not included in the minutes.
Okay.
Crestwood, Sunningdale, and Westerham.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Monaco,
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn,
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
This resolution has been approved. We will now move to ordinances, beginning with ordinance number 2023-06. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinance number 2023-06, an ordinance amending the original appropriations ordinance 2022-28 for the current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Mayfield Heights, State of Ohio, for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2023, specifically the transfer and supplemental appropriations of funds in various accounts, and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Move.
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta,
Second.
second by Mr. Belestrea. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes?
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Tressi,
Second.
second by Mr. Belstrea. This ordinance is transferring funds from the general fund to help with some of the costs that were appropriated. And Mrs. Fagan, did you want to go over some of these appropriations?
Absolutely. What I would say is these are the full appropriations for the city for all of the expenditures for the year. We can't spend anything unless it is appropriated. The table on the cover sheet in the legislation itself spotlights the interfund transfers only. The full budget, the full appropriations are in the exhibit as noted in section 1 of the legislation. So it's that section, it's that exhibit that has the full expenditures for the city.
Are there any questions from council? Mr. DeJohn?
No, the only thing I can say, I wish it was line item, but they can't do that here. So.
Okay.
Mrs. Fagan says that's, well, maybe she,
All right.
Yes, please.
It's not that Mrs. Fagan, it's not that Mrs. Fagan says so we can't. According to our codifieds, the legal level of control, which is the level the council approves everything, is by personal services and other expenditures per department, per fund. So that's how your exhibit is broken out by your legal level of control.
Okay, thank you. John?
yeah, so just to clarify, what I was saying is, and to follow up what Mrs. Fagan is saying, I would like to see this all separated, into different funds so we can appropriate that money. Let's say we disagree with the amount of money being appropriated. We're doing how many items here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Those are just the I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Those are just the transfers. Those transfers have been in place since this budget was passed last year. They have not changed at all. They're not being changed tonight.
Okay, when,
Right.
The changes that you're approving tonight are in the exhibit in the second column from the right, under the proposed amendments column. And I believe all in total, there's maybe 8 of them. I could be off on that number.
okay.
Like 9,
Yeah, 9.
yeah.
All right, thank you. I'm satisfied. I'm going to talk to Mrs. Fagan further about this in the coming months, so we'll get to the bottom of it.
And you can
Thanks.
have a meeting for your finance, so you
Sure.
can have a
Yeah,
meeting
yeah,
with
yeah.
her. Okay. Any further questions? Okay, roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes?
Mrs. Teresi. Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, this ordinance has been approved now. Thank you. This time, do I have a motion to enter into executive session for the purpose of pending litigation?
Moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, second by Mr. Balestrea. Roll call on the motion for the executive session.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Mr. Balestrea.
Put it out, yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes?
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. It is now 7:55, and we will enter executive session.
Yeah, I hope so.
You read that thing, they want 25%
It's always a
of
surprise
whatever
to
they
have
bring in.
executive session.
$135,000 a year employee who is a
It is now 9:25 and council is back in session. Is there any new business or comments from council? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sabata, second by Mr. Monaco. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone. We are now adjourned.